On today's episode, I talk to Dr. Bradley Nelson. He's the developer of some of the most advanced forms of energy medicine on the planet, a holistic chiropractic physician and medical intuitive. Dr. Nelson is one of the world's foremost experts in the emerging field of bioenergetic medicine and energy psychology. His best-selling book, The Emotion Code, is helping people all over the world to improve their lives by ridding themselves of their imbalancing emotional baggage. In 2009, he channeled his life's work into the simple yet profound self-study course known as The Body Code, which teaches students how to balance the body in 6 key areas. The Body Code is being used successfully by doctors and lay people alike to improve the health of thousands of people all over the world, and is a software application as well as newly published hardcover book. Dr. Bradley Nelson is a 5-1 sacral manifesting generator, cross of limitation, and so much of what he talks about on this podcast is literally him speaking his design. I thought it was fascinating to hear him really talk as the line 5. He was all over the fact that he's had all these experiences and these instantaneous healings with energy healing, and he just had to take it to the world. Talk about universalize, right? His core talent is the 42, which I also think is interesting because it's the ending of cycles. It's all this energy about knowing what needs to end and what needs to continue. And I was kind of like, wow, that's crazy with so much of what he was talking about. The last interesting tidbit that I want to give you is he again has the 4323. And I would say this channel shows up so often in the experts that I interview. And it's the genius to freak. It's this ability to take in huge amounts of complex information and simplify it down so it can be received well by others. So I don't know, the 5-1 and the 4323, it just seems really common in a lot of highly successful people, or it's energy that I specifically call in. He's also the cross of limitation, so I better go hit up Brynja's book and see what that has for me. In fact, let me get it so I can give you the question, because if you're listening to whenever you're listening to this podcast, you are calling in the cross of limitation. Hang on. Okay, the cross of limitation. If someone with the cross of limitation crosses your path, be aware that you might identify or challenge your limits. The dinner party question is, what is your limitation at this moment? Oof, I'm going to go journal on that. Enjoy the episode. Hey, and welcome to the podcast, everyone. I am super excited to have today's guest with me because this is something that I've been working with for many years. You have heard Frank Elleridi talk about it. You've actually heard me talk about a friend of mine, Tiffany, who has done this on my horse and with great results. So I'm so excited to have Dr. Bradley Nelson here on the podcast. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Emma. It's really great to be on your show, and can't wait to talk about all this fun stuff.
Oh my God, I love it so much. It has been a really big player in my life for many, many years. I've got, the healing journey story that so many of us have, and this has been such an important part. The emotion code has been something that's really played a big role. And interestingly, as I said, a friend of mine actually asked if she could experiment with my horse because she was training in whatever the modality is where you can help animals. And I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. And it made like a instant change. It was really cool. But before I get ahead of myself, because I get excited, I get ahead of myself, let's start at the beginning. I'd really love to hear a little bit about your hero's journey. I really believe that our dark night of the soul, this challenge that 99.9% of us have, is this invitation into our purpose. It's this time in our life where, God knows why, instead of giving up and quitting, we're like, all right, I'm just going to get ugly and go forward. And it becomes this catalyst of ultimately who we become. And in your journey, that sounds like it's everything that sits under this banner of emotion code. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey and the journey to creating all this incredible work that you've created?
Sure. Well, It really goes back to age 7, which is a long time ago now. But I was really sick with the measles, and I'd overheard my folks talking, and I knew the plan was I was going into the hospital the next day, going into something called an oxygen tent, and I didn't know really what that meant, but I knew that I was really sick, and so on this particular night, my parents, they'd made a bed for me on the couch so I could be near their bedroom, and everyone else had gone to bed except me and my folks, and I'm lying on the couch just feeling really nauseated and just ill and feverish, and my folks walked into the room, and my mother said to my father, she said, "Honey, will you kneel down with me and say a prayer for our boy so he'll be able to get well?" And so they did. And knowing my dad, this is probably the first time I'd ever heard my dad pray. He wasn't, a preacher or anything like that. He was in real estate and construction, but he's praying for me. And in the middle of this short, heartfelt prayer, this change began at the top of my head, and it went whoosh through my body to the soles of my feet. And the result was I was instantaneously healed in the space of about 1 second.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so that was the beginning for me. And that taught me, I held my tongue till my dad was done praying, which didn't take long. And when he was done, I said, I'm better. And they said, that's fine, honey, go back to sleep. But the next day proved it that I was better. And so even though I was only 7, I learned a couple of things from that, really powerful lessons. One is that there is a higher power, an unseen power, apparently, that we can draw upon sometimes and get help. And the other thing that I learned is that healing maybe doesn't always have to take a long time, because I was healed instantaneously and I lived through it. And I'll never forget it if I live to be 1,000,000 years old. It's one of the things in my life that is just like burned in every particle of my being. So that was the first thing that happened. And then about another 7 years go by, right? Those 7-year cycles. And I ended up with kidney disease. And I would get these terrific pains in the back that would take my breath away, or literally knock me down to the ground. And it was really scary. And my folks took me to the hospital, and they ran all these tests. And my parents were told that I had kidney disease. There was no real treatment for me. And it was about 50-50 whether I would survive or not. So all I knew was that I was in a lot of pain, but my parents were really scared for me. So, but since there was nothing Western medicine had to offer, they took me to see some old-time holistic doctors that worked out on the edge of town. This is in Great Falls, Montana, out in the middle of a wheat field in a trailer house. That was their clinic. And they started working on me. And right away, my body started responding. I could feel it. And within about 3 weeks, the tests that were rerun at the hospital showed I was, had a clean bill of health. And I knew that these people had helped me. So I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to become a doctor like these guys. And so then, let's see, roughly another 7 years after that, I was going to school in Hawaii, and I needed one more class to round out my schedule. And the only class that fit my schedule was a class on computer programming, so I took it. Not really having any interest, but suddenly I discovered I was a complete nerd, and that was the beginning. That totally changed my life. So I became a computer programmer. Back in the early 80s, I had a business called the Computer Tutor, and I would go into people's offices and businesses, and they'd have a new IBM PC, and I would actually write the software that would enable them to get some use out of the thing, because there was no software back in those days, right? So that's what I did, and it was really fun. I thought, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It was really cool. So then in the winter of 1984, 85, my wife and I went home to Montana. I was about 6 months away from going into the master's program in business at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And we were sitting around talking with my mom and dad, and my dad, totally out of the blue, says to me, are you sure that you don't want to go to chiropractic school? Because you've always wanted to go into the healing arts. It seems like a great career, and you've had that interest. And I said, no, I'm going this other direction. I'm going to stay in computers and business. And he said, well, why don't you think about it one more time? Probably the most important question anybody's ever asked me. And so I thought, well, all right. So my wife and I made up a pro and con list. And now suddenly I'm back in the middle of these two potential, I'm at a fork in the road again. I thought I had it figured out, Now I'm back at the fork in the road and I've got these two compelling futures. I don't know which one to do now. So that night, got on our knees, prayed about it. And that night I had this experience where I was awakened 3 different times. And each time that I was awakened, my mind was full of all these thoughts about how great it is to help people naturally and so on. And I would counter it with something about computers, I think. And so the next night, prayed about it again. And on the second night, I had this experience where each time I was awakened, and it was 3 more times that I was awakened on the second night, each time that I was awakened, the thoughts of service to mankind and humanity were like, each time was exponentially more powerful than the last time. So that on the third time that I was awakened on the second night, the thoughts were just absolutely overwhelming. It was thoughts of service to mankind and the whole world, all of humanity, the whole thing. And right then I heard a voice that spoke to me very clearly. And it said, this is a sacred calling. And I thought, okay, I accept. I didn't know what it meant, right? But because I had been a computer programmer, when I went to chiropractic school and got out, I was always trying to do anything that I possibly could to help my patients, even if it seemed new or different or or frowned upon or whatever. I didn't care. If it worked, that was all I was interested in. But it gradually began to dawn on me that within each patient was a computer, unlike any computer I had ever seen. Right? If you think about it, we're used to using computers, right? We use smartphones. That's a computer, really. It's got a screen where we see messages and we can, communicate. And then we have, usually they're a touch screen, so we can touch things unless you're still using a BlackBerry and you got a keyboard. And if you're still using one of those, then, more power to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I'm sitting here, I've got my laptop in front of me. I've got a screen where I can see messages. I got a keyboard. So that's the kind of interface that is. But the human computer is a different kind of computer than what we're really used to. It's a computer that has no screen. And so it communicates to us, rather than showing us images on a screen, it communicates to us through the symptoms that we experience. And those can include like physical pain, right? I mean, all the things that we deal with, depression, anxiety, phobias, panic attacks, post-traumatic stress disorder, self-sabotage, right? Infertility, asthma, cancer, digestive disorders, all of those things and more, all the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms that we have are best thought of as messages on the screen of the subconscious mind. It's trying to communicate to us, but it has no screen to show us things. It shows us things by the symptoms that we feel, right? Oh, my neck hurts. Oh, my back hurts. Oh, I can't have a child. Oh my gosh, I'm sick to my stomach, etc. All of these things are communications. And so we can communicate with the subconscious mind through various forms of muscle testing. The subconscious mind will be strong. For example, if I were there with you, Emma, if you were to hold your arms straight out parallel to the floor, if you were to say, my name is Emma, that'd be a true statement. If I were to press down on your outstretched arm, you'd be able to resist me, no problem. But if you were to say something untrue, like my name is Jill, if I were to press down on your arm would weaken. And so, this kind of thing is known about forever, and I didn't come up with that. It's been around, since time out of mind. The body responds to truth, or falsehood, or positivity, or negativity, or congruency, or incongruency. But in my own practice, what I found was that I could communicate with this internal computer that people had, that every single one of my patients had. And so as time went on, as I was able to communicate more and more clearly with the subconscious mind of my patients, I found that that subconscious mind was very willing to give up its information, very willing to let me know what was really going on in the body, why this patient was having symptoms, and so on. And so I had a really interesting, very unusual kind of a practice. I remember, for the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all in Western medicine. These are people who were really chronically sick, and they would often be told, you're never going to get well, et cetera. I remember one of these patients one day, I was in kind of a goofy mood, and this brand new patient, this woman who's really not well, been told there's no cure for her. And it was her very first visit. I hadn't even worked on her yet. I just had our first meeting. And I looked at her and I said, well, I'm basically clueless about what's wrong with you. And her eyes got really big and she looked at me and I said, but wait, I said, it's okay, because your subconscious mind, the computer inside of you, knows exactly what's wrong with you. And I know how to talk to it. So it's going to be okay. And she got well, and the vast majority of those patients were able to get well. So it's a very interesting thing. The subconscious mind knows what's going on. And interestingly, what I found is that as I began communicating with the subconscious minds of these patients, over time, it became obvious that there was one imbalance, one kind of problem that overshadowed all the other kinds of problems that people had, or in other words, all the other imbalances that were creating symptoms. And that was what I came to call their emotional baggage. And so what is emotional baggage? Well, if you think about your body, what is your body really? We're made of bones, and we're made of skin and muscle and nerve tissue and organs and blood vessels and so on. But really, for example, if you were to take a big microscope, the most powerful microscope in the world, and point it at your hand, and if you were to begin zooming in more and more and more, pretty soon you'd be seeing cells, and then you'd be seeing organelles that make up the cells, like mitochondria and so on. Keep zooming in. At about 850,000 times magnification, you might be looking at a strand of DNA, right? And if you keep zooming in, and that, of course, is made of molecules, keep zooming in, it's somewhere over 1 million times magnification. You might find yourself looking at a single individual atom. And you'd notice that the next atom is a long distance away. And if you were to continue zooming in and look inside that atom, you'd see there's really nothing in there. It's just energy. There's nothing solid there at all. In fact, Albert Einstein said that even though we think of matter as being solid, he said there really is no matter as such. He said everything is just energy, and some energy takes the form of physical things, like the table that I'm sitting at, or the chair I'm sitting on, or the walls of your home and so on, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars. But like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think of everything in terms of energy and frequency and vibration, because that's what everything is made of. Mm-hmm. Thought, emotions, etc. And so as we experience different emotions, most of the time we're able to process those emotions really efficiently. I mean, think about this. This happens every day. A certain emotion will come up for a person, and you'll kind of just acknowledge that emotion and allow it to dissipate and go away. And that's normally how we handle it. But sometimes an emotion might come up for you that you don't want to deal with. And so you push it away, okay? And you go do something else. If you do that, that emotional energy has not been expressed, and that energy will stay there. And we call that a trapped emotion. Trapped emotions can also form if you are, for example, dealing with something that's really overwhelming. A death in the family or something really tragic has happened. Those emotions can be so powerful you can't deal with them. And so those energies can also become trapped. Or sometimes something comes up and an emotion comes up for us, and we decide to really artificially enhance that, and we get really upset. And then later we realize, that was kind of dumb. I flew off the handle. I didn't need to do that. And we're usually embarrassed. But those three circumstances, burying the emotion, experiencing something overwhelming, or making it kind of overwhelming ourselves by choice, will result in the formation of what we call trapped emotions. Now, a trapped emotion is a little ball of energy from about the size of a baseball, about the size of a softball, or maybe a small melon. And these inhabit the body. And so you can actually have an emotional energy. It's a weird thing, but emotions in this sense are actually real. And so you might have a trapped emotion of resentment from, maybe from high school, junior high, childhood. Maybe it's fear from being bullied as a child. Maybe it's grief or heartache from hearing your parents argue and getting divorced, or going through traumatic, difficult relationships yourself, etc. We all basically run the gauntlet in life, right? Some of us get beaten up more than others, but we all experience emotional things that we would rather probably not have to experience, but we do, and that's life, right? But we end up, all of us, with emotional baggage. And what I found was that emotional energies like these were absolutely far and away the most common underlying reason for all of the things my patients were suffering from. It was weird. For example, every case of cancer that I've seen in 35 years has always had an emotional component. And sometimes it seems to be the biggest component.
Yeah.
But it's always there. In fact, every disease process that I have seen now in 35 years has always had an emotional component to it. And so, you think about this. If you've been diagnosed with some disease, I can guarantee you there is an emotional piece of that puzzle. And you may be doing everything else right. You might be getting lots of sunshine and clean water and taking all your supplements and exercising and everything else. You might be doing lots of positive meditations and so on, and mantras and affirmations and everything. But if there's emotional energy that's trapped in those tissues, everything else that you're doing may not be enough. And so it's a really important thing. And I realized, for example, 90% of all the physical pain that people have is due to emotional baggage. And so that's why I left my practice really in 2004 and wrote this book, The Emotion Code. I knew this had to go out to the whole world. This wasn't just for me. And the beauty of it is that The Emotion Code, which the book looks like this, is simple enough that anybody can do it. And in fact, the whole methodology, the whole thing, it's all in here in this book. And one of the really fun things that you alluded to earlier, right, was that this actually works incredibly well also with animals, because they also have a subconscious mind. They also feel emotions. They develop emotional baggage. And it's amazing how well it works and how it can fix their problems too.
Yeah, it was fantastic. What year did the Emotion Code come out?
Well, it came out June of 2007, the same exact month and year as the iPhone, just to kind of give you a
time. Wow, because I reckon I must have read it around maybe 2010. And like the book is, I'm a very practical human, as you are, because you're a line 5 in human design. And I loved this book. And just to respond to my horse's name is Legacy, Legs. What was so fascinating is when we did this on him, he had a heartbreak because he was the woman who bred him, she bred him for her. And then she got into a situation where she had to sell him.
Okay.
And he actually had this whole moment of when she'd sold him and she walked away that had broken his heart. And we did the clearing on him. And literally the next day, he was completely different. And it was so cool. And she's like, are you kidding me? Because that actually happened. What you're talking about actually happened. So it was really cool.
It's so fun.
Yeah. And there's so much that you said that I'm like, oh my God, I wanted to jump out of my skin, because I'm like, yes. So many things to respond to. And I am one of those people who I was diagnosed over 20 years ago now with depression and panic disorder, and told that there was no way to heal it. I would have to learn to manage it for the rest of my life. And, I've been without, depression and anxiety for 15 years or so. So, and the Emotion Code was part of that process. What I would love to kind of head into is this heart wall, because you talk about how, and for me, this is really resonant right now, because, I'm still in the bloody process of divorcing my ex. And, it really woke me up to this whole realization that I'd been on the planet for 50 years and thought that I wasn't lovable. And consciously, I wasn't really aware of it. It was my human design that really helped me go, okay, maybe I need to look at this, because there's a certain part of your design that we call your G center, which is where your unconditional love and your lovability sits, and mine's wide open, meaning I get really influenced by other people. So I actually did do some work, and this is before I even separated with Frank Elleridi on my heart wall. And I was listening to a podcast interview that you did recently, and you were talking about, it's a huge percentage of people that you believe actually have this heart wall. So let's talk about that and potentially how we can actually clear it, because I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking I want my heart as wide open as I can get it for all areas of my life. Are you looking to build a successful human design or astrology business? Do you wish that you had your own chart tool on your website so you don't have to send people somewhere else to get it? Bodygraph.com provides all the resources you need to turn this vision into a reality. We use this incredible software in our business to provide charts and custom reading reports at the click of a button, generate leads, and bring in lots of passive revenue. Bodygraph.com has already helped coaches and entrepreneurs generate over $2.5 million in revenue. If you're ready to take your business seriously, start with a free trial and use the code HumanDesignPodcast to get 30% off for 6 months. Here's what you can do with Bodygraph.com. Embed stunning charts directly into your website, build personalized lead magnets to grow your email list, create and sell detailed reading reports, and even use their free website builder to get started fast. Bodygraph.com is the ultimate all-in-one platform for building your human design or astrology business. If you're ready to join the community of successful entrepreneurs, visit bodygraph.com and start building your dream business today. Follow the link in the show notes and use the code HumanDesignPodcast to get 30% off for 6 months.
Absolutely. That's exactly what you want. Well, it's really interesting. To me, it starts back in the 1960s when doctors first started doing heart transplants, because it didn't take too many transplants before a strange thing began to happen. Certain patients would come back to the doctor and they would report that for some weird reason, their taste in music or food or sports had completely changed since their transplant. Sometimes they would have memories of being in places that they never in their life had ever visited. And so their life had changed in these weird ways. And so when they would connect these transplant recipients with the heart donor's family or relatives, inevitably they would find out things like, well, yes, our son was a baseball player and now you love baseball, but you didn't like it before. That's weird. Or, yeah, our daughter visited Rome every year. It was her favorite city in the world. And now you have memories of being in Rome, but you say you've never, ever visited there. So those are her memories. How weird is that, right? So there are whole books written about this. It's called cellular memory. Well, ancient societies believed that the heart was much, much more than we have believed in the West. They believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love and creativity and romance. And they believed that the heart was really the core of our being. And those ideas came about in a very natural way because, for example, if someone's really hurting you or you're really deep in grief, you don't get a headache or a backache, you'll get a heartache. You'll feel it here, like there's an elephant sitting on your chest or like you can't breathe. You'll feel it in your heart. And so your hands instinctively will cover your heart. By the same token, if you're at a concert, for example, and maybe the person, maybe there's a singer that's singing beyond her natural ability and her heart is totally in it and her heart is just ringing, your heart and the heart of everyone else in that room is also going to be ringing, just like little tuning forks. And you look around and you'll see people with tears in their eyes, right? And their hands will be over their heart because that's where the resonance takes place. her heart's ringing, his heart's ringing, your heart's ringing as well. Well, so in the last 20 or so years, we've begun to realize that the heart puts out this magnetic field that extends out around the body, about 6 feet on all sides, and probably even further, but they've been able to measure it about that distance. And they found that when one person's feeling love or affection for another person, their heartbeat seems to become measurable in that other person's brain waves. In fact, their heart rates will synchronize and so on.
Wow.
So there's this cosmic thing going on with the heart. And I believe that the heart is everything the ancients believed it to be. It really, truly is the core of our being. I believe it's the seat of the subconscious mind. It's everything that they thought. Well, so here's what happens to us. You think back on a time in your life when you were really hurting, okay? Somebody was really hurting you, or you were going through something really heartbreaking. You can feel like your heart is going to break. And you can feel a physical sensation, like we mentioned. And when that happens to you more than once or twice, the subconscious mind will try to protect itself. The heart will try to protect itself by putting up a wall made of energy. And the energy that it chooses, inevitably, is the energy of the emotional baggage that you have built up in your life. And so there may be multiple layers of energy surrounding this wall, right? We discovered this, or really this was shown to us. The whole story is in the Emotion Code book. In fact, we have a new book coming out this year called The Heart Code, which is just specifically about this phenomenon because it's so important. It's definitely the most important part of the Emotion Code. Mm. And so it was my wife Jean actually that this was first done on, where she was the first person in this modern era that had their heart wall removed. And so we found out that she had this wall. We hadn't even heard of it before, but it's a very interesting experience. I won't go into it, but how this all came about. But she had this wall, and it took a couple of weeks to take down these emotional layers one at a time. And by the way, this is all in the Emotion Code book, how to do this. The price that she had paid for having this wall, which she had put up starting at age 2.
Wow.
She was born into a very unstable environment. Her dad was a good man, but really a rageaholic. And so nobody knew when dad was going to blow up, blow his top. Nobody knew who it was going to be. And there was no justice or, any rationale to it. It was very unsafe. And so by age 2, she began to build this wall of energy around her heart because otherwise her little heart was going to break, right? And so she'd had this wall and it added layers to it when other bad things had happened in her life. So the result of that was that she battled with depression and anxiety. And also an interesting side effect of this was that she never really felt like she belonged, no matter what group she was with, even girls that she had known for years and years and decades. She still never really felt like she was part of the group. She always felt like she was kind of the odd person out and kind of expendable, right? Really
wow, I feel like you're talking about me, just by the way. Like literally, I'm tearing up over here. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, when that last wall, that last emotional layer was taken down, suddenly she feels like she belongs for the first time. And these other problems began to really just, kind of flow away from her. And so, so I think it was the next person that I saw initially, Emma, I thought that maybe this was just my wife's thing, that nobody else had this. It's such a weird thing.
As you do.
It turns out that 93% of people we find have put up a wall.
Yeah.
So it's the majority of people in the world.
Which makes so much sense, right? It makes so much sense of why humans would be making the choices. Like, I can't stand on a freaking cockroach, like I'm like, I can't, I'm gonna hurt it, like, whereas we're so switched off to feeling.
Yeah. Well, we're all living, most of us, the majority of the world, in other words, is living and operating from this brain. And this brain feels nothing. We've all got two brains. We now know the heart's full of gray matter and white matter, just like the heart, or just like the brain itself. And so they call it the little brain in the heart. And that's where our true affinities lie. And all the great spiritual teachers, I think, throughout time, really were trying to teach us to live not from this brain, but from this brain, to live from the heart. And I think that's, when you talk to people about becoming an ascended being, what is that about? Well, it's all about unconditional love to me. And that doesn't come from this brain. That comes from this brain. And unlocking that brain, right, and allowing it to really create the life you're capable of. Well, so what we have seen is we've seen people fall in love who never thought they would. We have, and sometimes in really short order too.
Sign me up.
Yeah, right. Oh man, I could tell you. Let me tell you one story.
Yeah.
I don't tell this very often, but not long after the book first came out, I went to an authors conference in New York City, and I'm in this skyscraper in Manhattan with about 100 other brand new authors, and it's in this big empty room, and all around the outside of the room are all of the media. Good Morning America, Today's Show, the Wall Street Journal. Everybody was there. And all of us authors have about a 3-minute window to pitch our book to each, media outlet. And so that's why I was there, to try to get an audience for my book. Well, I ended up actually, one of the booths was manned by a woman who told me that she was very interested, first of all. And so I was telling her all about it. And then the bell rang and there was a break. And so I had a few more minutes. I didn't have anything else to do. So I kept talking. And she told me that she was 42 years old. She was an Orthodox Jew. She'd never really been in a long-term relationship, but she had a goal to be married within that year. And I said, hey, that's great. I've been married for a long time. Do you have a prospect? Are you dating somebody? She said, no, she had no prospects and wasn't dating. And I thought, oh man, okay, it's gonna be a little harder. And I said, if you have a heart wall, it's gonna be a lot more difficult for you to find your soulmate, especially within the next year. And she said, well, what's a heart wall? So I explained how the subconscious mind puts up a wall around the heart that can interfere with our ability to give and receive love, right? And so I tested her sitting across from her and, just using some muscle testing, and found she had a heart wall. And I thought, I don't have anything else to do. We've got a little more time in the break. Let me see if I can help her. And so I handed her a little refrigerator magnet, which, you can use to release these emotions, or you can just use your hand. We swipe over the governing meridian, which goes straight up the back like this. And so I handed her a magnet, and I'm sitting across from her, and I'm testing her and finding trapped emotions, making up this wall. And we had to figure out what the age was for most of these. And she remembered there was something kind of difficult each one of those ages. And so it takes 3 swipes to release a trapped emotion. Once you've identified it, right? And so she takes the magnet. It's the very last emotion making up this wall around her heart. And she takes the magnet, and she does the first swipe. She gets halfway through the second swipe of the magnet. And this amazing thing happened that I'll try to describe. If you can imagine, I'm sitting across from her. We're in this big room. People are milling all around. And she swipes over her head, and all of a sudden, it's like the sun has risen inside of her. And there's this energy that's just suddenly pouring out of her heart. It was like standing in front of a searchlight. It was it was the craziest thing. I felt it. She wasn't feeling it. And but I'll tell you the rest of it. It's hard to describe. It's like if you can imagine having a long, long, cold, gray winter, and then you finally get a sunny day, and you walk outside and you just kind of go, oh, that's what this felt like. It was so amazing. And I tried to describe to her what I was feeling. And she just, I think, thought I was kind of off my nut. But anyway, that was given to me, I think, because I chose to just help her. And by the way, as I was sitting across from her, I had this feeling that this is probably one of the most pure people I've ever met in my life. Just a really pure, good soul. So I told her, I said, look, now your heart wall is removed. And I said, now the pure essence of who you are, in other words, that your heart itself is now no longer imprisoned, but that energy is going out into the world, out into the universe. And I said, now it's going to be a lot more likely for you to, to make your goal of finding your soulmate, because we fall in love and we attract love into our lives, not by what we're thinking here, but by what's going on in our heart. Right?
Yeah.
And so as I'm telling her these words, and it's going to sound like I'm making this up, Emma, but as I'm telling her this Orthodox Jewish single doctor that I had met earlier that day, who on the scale of good looking was about an 18. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. He walks right by me and walks right up to her like a moth to the flame. He happened to be Orthodox Jew as well, and strikes up this conversation with her. And I remember thinking, wow, this stuff really works fast. And
I love it. I want it. Sign me up.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. So anyway, this is not uncommon at all. Also, creative ideas begin to flow spontaneously for people when that wall is taken down, because the best creative ideas you'll ever have won't come from here. They'll come from
100%. Oh my God, I love it so much. And I feel like, well, the question that I wanted to ask is, I'm curious because I worked on my heart wall before I ever separated from my ex. And I definitely created a heart wall because of my mother, but my ex also had some of the similar patterns. So would it be fair to say that on some level my subconscious mind is like, we might just need that bit. We're not quite ready to let go of that bit. Like, does it work? You know how the subconscious mind without intervention will be like, you don't need that memory until you're ready to deal with it. Like, does it work that way? So would it be different if I went on to do more work on my heart wall now?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you want to, we could try to tune in and see.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be amazing. I was going to ask you about something else, but let's absolutely do this after that story.
Okay. All right, cool. So here's how this works. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon that is known as entanglement. And that means that energies can become connected or entangled at vast distances, and then they move together in sync. And so what we have learned is that we can connect through intention, and so this work is done at a distance. By the way, this last week we certified, actually this week I guess we certified our 15,000th emotion code practitioner.
Wow!
In 108 countries. And so we have lots of people doing this, and most of them work with other people at long distances. So this is not unusual at all.
I would say almost all the people that I work with, whether it's a kinesiologist, I have one of my coaches on my team, she does Psych K, but she uses emotion code. Like, so many people I know, whatever modality they use, they also use this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Because you can, it works with everything. And it's
so
fast.
Good.
Okay, so what we're going to do first, because we believe this came down from up above, really, we'll just take a moment and have a moment of silence, and I'll ask for some help for us from up above. Okay, here we go. All right, cool. So now I'm going to be using a little method of muscle testing that I call the ring and ring method. There's lots of different methods. This one's kind of easy to demonstrate because it's, you can see my fingers will stay strong. And they'll stay together if the answer coming from your subconscious mind to mine is yes. If the answer is no, coming from you, then the rings will break open. Okay, so that's how that works. So here we go. Let's ask, first of all, are we connected energetically? Are our energies entangled? And the answer there is yes. Okay, so now the question is, do you have a heart wall? Yes. Can we release an emotion from your heart wall now? And the answer is yes. So this first emotion is listed here in the chart in column A, and that's a yes. So is it in one of the odd rows? No. So that means, and do you want me to share my screen maybe for this?
Yeah, that would be epic.
Can you see that?
Yep, it's coming up now. Perfect. Brilliant.
Okay, so here we have the emotion code chart, which consists of 2 columns and 6 rows, dividing up 60 emotions that represent the span of emotions that we experience. And so this emotion, let's ask, is it in column A of this chart? And the answer is yes, it's in column A. Is it in one of the odd rows in column A? So that's 1, 3, or 5. The answer there is no. So we have 15 emotions left out of 60. We know it's in column A, row 2 or 4 or 6. Is it in row 2 in column A? No. Is it in row 4 in column A? It's in row 4, column A. So that narrows it down to 5 emotions just that quickly. And so what emotion is this? I have no idea. The answers are coming from your subconscious mind. Is the emotion anger? No. Is it bitterness? No. Is it guilt? No. Is it hatred? No. Is it resentment? Yeah. So there's an emotion of resentment there. Do we need to know more about this? No. Now, the reason why we ask if we need to know more about an emotion is that, remember, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to close the loop on an emotional experience. We're trying to actually complete an emotional experience that was not completed, either by being buried or being overwhelming or making it overwhelming, you know. So, so we don't need to know any more about that one. So that means we can go ahead and release it. Now I can use a magnet or I can use my hand. Either way, I'll just use my hand. And the governing meridian, little river of energies, starts at the tailbone, goes straight up the back, over the top of the head to the inside of, actually to the upper gum, inside the lip. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my hand and just swipe 1, 2, 3 times over that meridian to release this trapped emotion. And did we release that successfully? And we did. And that's as simple as this is. It can be sometimes a little more complicated if we have to dig. But let's ask, do you still have a heart wall? Yeah. Can we release another trapped emotion from your heart wall now? Yep. Is this emotion in column A? No. So this is in column B. So what's happening is, as I'm asking these questions, your subconscious mind is communicating those to my subconscious mind because our energies are entangled, and that works at any distance. And so we now know that this emotion is in column B. Is it in one of the odd rows in column B? No. So is it in row 2 in column B, row 4, column B? So here we go. It's one of these right here. Okay. So is the emotion depression? No. Is it frustration? Is it indecisiveness or panic or taken for granted? No, it's not any of those. So what does that mean? Well, when you're taken to a column in a row and you can't find the emotion, it means that the emotional energy was actually inherited. And so we inherit emotional energies at conception from mom or dad, and they might have received them at conception from their mom or their dad, and these can go back for generations. So let's take a look at this and let's ask, is this an inherited emotion? Yes. So you've had this emotion, whatever it is, since you were conceived. So is this emotion depression? Is it frustration or indecisiveness or panic? It's an inherited emotion of panic. Okay. All right. So let's see here.
Wow. My mum had anxiety. My grandmother had anxiety.
Okay. Well, let's see. Did this come from your mom's side? It did. And did she get it from her mother? Well, yeah. Does it go back further? It does. So how many generations back from you does this go? Your grandmother got this from somebody earlier. Does it go back 5 generations from you? Yes. 10? Yes. 15? No. 14, 13, 12, 11. There's back 11 generations from you, or back to about roughly 1735 AD, give or take maybe 20, 30 years.
Wow.
Now, did this originate with a female? Actually, no. This started with a male, with a grandfather of yours 11 generations back. Okay. So that's about all we can know about this. So, but do you have kids, by the way, Emma?
I do. I have 2 kids, 2 boys.
2 boys. Okay. So, and they're your biological kids?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So let's ask, did you pass this emotional energy to them? Uh-huh. Both of them? Yeah. Okay, cool. So now let's release this. Now, here's the crazy thing with the emotion code. What we find is that when you have an emotional energy like this, it's not like there's a lot of these energies. This is not a bunch. It's just one energy. It originated 11 generations back, and it's been being shared down the line. But in quantum physics, this is a known thing that one energy theoretically can be in an infinite number of places at one time. And that's what this is. So you have this, your mom has this, your grandmother has this. It goes all the way back. Of course, most of those people are dead and gone, but yet their spirits live on. They're only dead physically. So let's go ahead and release this. Now to release this, we do 10 swipes of the magnet over the governing meridian. And let's ask, did we release that inherited trapped emotion of panic from you? Yes. Did it also release from your mom and her mom and all those ancestors all the way back, and also from your 2 kids? Yep, from everybody.
Amazing.
So that's one of the reasons why people like the emotion code, is that it's very fast and very effective. And when we clear an emotion, an emotional energy in this way, We've never seen one actually come back. They don't come back; they're gone permanently.
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh my God, that is so fantastic. And it, as a mother, like the idea that, um, yes, this has gone from me and upwards, but the fact that it's also serving my kids, that just,
Yeah.
and I've seen like probably my eldest. In fact, I've seen both of them sort of deal with anxiety. So there's been ways that I've helped them, but that is just, oh my, that's gold, gold. I love it. So one of the things I want to talk about, because obviously with this podcast, we talk a lot obviously about human design, about being in alignment, but a lot about business and creating a life beyond our wildest dreams. Now, one of the things that I know personally has been a challenge is that some things I can manifest like that. It's just this whole, my book, I've just launched a book. It launched in the UK and Europe last year, and then in US, sorry, earlier this year, and then just in the US. I've just got back from the US from the launch. And it was so easy. Yet there's been other things that I'm like, come on. So I'm guessing that this has got to do with trapped emotions.
Well, it does. Not only trapped emotions, uh, but yes, trapped emotions are the single biggest fly in the ointment, you might say, because the problem is they operate on a subconscious level. And so, if you think about it, the conscious mind is where we live. We have all of our waking hours in the conscious mind. It's where we work our jobs, we set our goals, we try to achieve things, we have our relationships, and so on. But really, the conscious mind is only an infinitesimally tiny fraction, I believe, of your total intelligence, and the rest of it is really the unconscious mind or the subconscious. When you go to sleep at night, the conscious mind shuts down. What's left? The subconscious. It's keeping air moving in and out of your lungs, keeping your heart beating, creating millions of new cells every minute, trillions of chemical reactions every minute. It's an intelligence, I believe, that is beyond our ability to comprehend. And the reason why is because it is divine in nature. Now, the problem is when you have emotional baggage, that emotional baggage is radiating out into the universe its own particular frequency. So maybe it's failure or hopelessness. Okay? Maybe it's guilt or feeling fear, whatever it might be. And the average person has several hundred of these if they've gotten to middle age. And so we're like radio beacons sending out all these various frequencies out into the world. And so what tends to happen is, if you got a big emotion of betrayal from something that happened, or maybe that was even inherited, you're sending out that frequency, and it will make it more likely that people that will tend to betray you will align with that frequency and then manifest in your life. And that's kind of how it works, right? So, getting rid of this emotional baggage gets you much closer to who you are really intended to be. Now, we now know that we can also develop negative belief systems. And a negative belief system is where the subconscious mind has actually created entire little belief systems. A negative belief system is kind of like it's like a tree in the forest. It's got roots that we would call the faulty core belief, something that's not true about you or the world. Um, it's got a trunk, limiting beliefs. It's got leaves and branches in the upper part, which we would call negative programs. And we now know that we can identify these. We have a way to identify these now and get rid of these. And we can clear out an entire belief system in one shot. And we call that the belief code.
Mm.
And the belief code is our third level of certification. But we have people now, several thousand belief code practitioners now around the world that can also work on this kind of thing. The heart wall is where we like people to start. And often the most important thing to do is to just get rid of that wall around your heart. Now, the nice thing about the emotion code is if you don't have any money, you can get a hold of a copy of the book at your library. You can learn how to do this yourself.
Yeah.
And people have done just that and have changed their lives just by getting rid of that heart wall. But but yes, absolutely. I mean, see, our lives are a continual race, really, between the conscious mind and where we want to go consciously, and the subconscious mind and where it's pulling us. And because the subconscious mind is so vastly more powerful than the conscious, if we want to go, you know, north with our conscious mind or towards success or love or whatever, but the subconscious mind is pulling us in a different direction, for every step forward we take, we might end up taking 2 steps backward. And so, and it all depends on the area of your life that you're trying to really make traction in. For example, I've seen people who just struggled financially until some inherited emotional baggage of grief or something was released. And we can speculate that maybe that great grandfather was thrown into the poorhouse, and so that energy passes down the line, and now you struggle. Or maybe maybe your eighth great grandmother was jilted at the altar, and that betrayal and abandonment and grief is passed down, and now it's in your life, and you wonder, why in the world can't I find love? Why is it so hard for me? Well, guess what? There are invisible forces working on us that now we know how to identify and get rid of in pretty short order.
I just love it, and it's so fascinating. I don't know if you know Ainsley MacLeod, but he is probably one of the world's leading past life psychics, and I always used to believe, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Until I had a session with this man, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's trauma that I deal with in this real time that I could never find, but it was a past life. So I just find this so fascinating, because I feel like sometimes even though we've found personal or spiritual development, we're still the mouse in the wheel, because we're missing the point that this is in our cells, that this isn't something that we can kind of work on just with the mind. We have to go deeper.
That's right. You have to go deeper. It has to be beyond the conscious mind. And I've seen so many, just really countless experiences now where, after all of these years, where people had something that happened that they have no conscious memory of at all.
Yeah.
Something that happened when they were a child. Like the lady that had, the young lady that had pain and problems with her hip and her knee for years, and it all traced back to when her mother accidentally pinned her to her diaper when she was 1 year old, didn't even realize it, and the emotion that resulted was an emotion of forlorn, and releasing that immediately got rid of all the pain and everything else completely. But she had no conscious memory. That's one of the other really nice things about the emotion code, is that we rely completely on the internal computer that absolutely knows everything with a perfect understanding. Consciously, we remember almost nothing. Think about it. How much do you remember from when you were 5 years old? Maybe nothing.
No,
Maybe you
yeah.
one.
And is that memory even real? Because it's
Right.
something that we've probably shifted a bunch of times since then. So yeah.
Right.
So there are so many things that you talk about that has a deep correlation to human design, and especially the way I teach it. Like, one of the things in human, do you know anything about human design?
Just a little bit. I've never really been to any classes or anything.
And it's really interesting, because I say all the time, the majority of guests that I have on this podcast, they've got a 5-1 profile, and you're a freaking 5-1. And it's, what's amazing about that is because I'm listening, and when I do the intro, I'm going to be geeking out on all of this stuff, because you are speaking your design off the charts. And one of the big things is when you said, oh my God, this isn't just for me, I have to take it to the world. Like, the line 5s always have to universalize. It's the same reason I do what I do. Like, everyone needs to know this stuff. But I actually have this, and even the way you talk about emotions. So in human design, about 50% of the population are what we call emotional, and then the other half are non-emotional. So effectively, one are actually experiencing the emotions, and the other are taking in all this emotion and experiencing it slightly differently. And I'm always saying you've got to learn not to repress or indulge emotion, to in fact just let it move through you. And just hearing the way you talk about emotion and how we have to finish the loop and the three things that are going on, I'm just like, yes, 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 because this is what I'm talking about a lot. But the thing I'm fascinated about is there is a certain part, now I'm kind of deviating into the gene keys. Again, I'm not sure if you even know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter.
Okay, go ahead.
But there's a certain part of our chart, it's called the pathway of challenge. And I know for me that in this pathway of challenge, one of the greatest, watching my language, one of the challenges that consistently shows up for me is that I feel overwhelmed because I take on too much responsibility and I end up in exhaustion. And it's literally is the language of my gene keys. The shadow is exhaustion. So and the gene keys are like coded into our DNA. So I'm curious because I thought, well, what I might do is look up Dr. Bradley Nelson's pathway of challenge and ask him, is this the thing that have you been challenged with this? So when I put your information in, blah, 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 let me just see. Okay.
So interesting.
So your human design shows a core life challenge between gate 42 and 32. You don't need to understand that.
Okay.
Expectation and fear of failure. These are deeply tied to control, letting go, and worth. Have you ever had a moment in your journey, maybe with the emotion code, where these shadows nearly blocked your path, and how did you move through them?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you an interesting thing. When I was working on the emotion code, writing the book back in 2006, 2007, if anybody would have asked me during that time to describe that project in one word without any hesitation, I would have used the word hopeless. I would have said it feels completely hopeless, but I'm just continuing, one foot in front of the other. Every day when I would go to write, I'd have to spend half an hour to an hour just listening to really positive motivational things, Tony Robbins and so on, so that I could actually overcome the inertia. And it was a couple of years later that my daughter was working on me and found I had an inherited trapped emotion of hopelessness from 22 generations back that shifted that in a really dramatic way. But yeah, absolutely. It's
I love it.
It hasn't been easy the whole time. It's a continual kind of a low grade struggle.
Well, I feel like it's the same for all of us, right? And every time you go to the next level, like I'm definitely leveling up, and there you are again, faced with whatever the next thing is. But I mean, that's the point, right? The point is that this is an evolution and growth is a spiral. So we do go back and cover things again, but we're covering at a higher consciousness, at, a different place in time, to ultimately one day, hopefully clear it up, reach enlightenment, maybe if we're lucky, and probably 300 years old. So, but yeah, I love that.
Life is all about our growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
I just realized the time. I could talk to you forever, but I better let you go. So, where can people learn more? Obviously, we're going to put the links for the books in the show notes, but where else can they find you?
Well, the our main website is at discoverhealing.com. That's our main site. And my personal site is at drbradleynelson.com. It's drbradleynelson.com. And so, yeah, those are our main places. And then, of course, we're all over online and et cetera. I mean, like social media.
Yeah, I love that. And look, there really are some incredible emotion code practitioners out there. I've worked with so many, but yeah, Frank Allaridi and Tiffany Hart, shout out to you guys, because I know I've worked directly with you two before. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. This has been fantastic. And I feel like I've got like this much. I could have talked to you all day.
Well, we can do it again if you want.
Let's do it. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here with us. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now.